Hey, Maine First Media, it's Aaron Chadbourne. Thank you for reaching out to me to ask about Speaker Sara Gideon, the failed Speaker of the House. Your questions for me are, why should Sara Gideon be replaced? The session is over, special session just adjourned, there's only veto day left. Well, for the rest of the year, Sara Gideon could call herself the Speaker of the House. And she was not elected by the Maine people. She was elected only by the members of the legislature. So the members of the legislature have to ask themselves, if only the people of Freeport sent her there, why do they think that she's done a good job? She has mismanaged the legislature. She's mismanaged the House. She's the only Speaker of the House in recent memory that couldn't get a budget deal done. She couldn't form a governing coalition. Even Mark Eves working with Senate President Thibodeau. Senate President Thibodeau, by the way, not a great leader himself, but it was him working with Mark Eves that got a budget passed over Governor LePage's objection. Mark Eves and Mike Thibodeau could get 2/3, but Sara Gideon can't, because Sara Gideon calls Republicans terrorists. Sara Gideon cares about running for re-election, not about doing things for the Maine people. Sara Gideon's been holding the legislature hostage, not letting votes come up, tabling bill after bill after bill after bill. On veto day, it's not just going to be vetoes they take up, it's going to be new bills that they didn't get to. Bills like broadband, maybe. Bills like the bonds. During the government shutdown, which they stumbled into because Sara Gideon waited till the 11th hour to go speak to Governor LePage, and when she was offended by him, she went and sat in her office and sulked, and said she wouldn't speak to him unless he came to her office. They were meeting at the Blaine house, and she got offended and left. Troy Jackson sat at the table. Mike Thibodeau sat at the table. Ken Fredette sat at the table. But Sara Gideon went up to her office, and she claimed that he was discriminating her based on her gender. The government shut down because Sara Gideon left the table. That's not a leader. For direct healthcare workers, Republicans were ready for a deal a year ago, but Sara Gideon held them till now to say that Democrats in the election, you re-elect us, we'll give you an even bigger raise. Right now, tax conformity has not been passed, which means there's going to be a tax hike on Maine small businesses and Maine families. And Sara Gideon won't have a vote on taxes. She's going to raise taxes on small businesses unless taxpayer-funded campaigning gets passed. Her priorities are not the priorities of the Maine people. She does not deserve one more moment managing the schedule. A schedule, by the way, where she has 185 members of the legislature sitting there wasting their time. They're not with their families. They're not with their kids who are out of school. They're not at graduation. They're sitting in the legislature at 10 a.m. when she said they were going to start, and she doesn't ring the bell until 5 hours later. Sara Gideon's been wasting our time. Sara Gideon would rather get her name in the newspaper than do the right thing for the Maine people. We could have broadband expanded to 98% of the state of Maine if Sara Gideon would allow there to be a vote. We could have student debt relief, but Sara Gideon was upset that Governor LePage asked Marty Groman, someone who left the Democratic Party because he was disgusted with her leadership. And she said, well, unless you get a Democrat to sponsor, you have an independent sponsor, we're not going to take it up for a vote. Sara Gideon puts party and election before helping Maine people. It doesn't matter whether something is part of the opportunity agenda, the Democratic agenda. Sara Gideon cares about the Gideon agenda. It's all her all the time, and she can't manage a calendar. And it's not her fault. She just didn't have the opportunity, but you know what? You can fail. It's okay. America is a place where failure is prized. Entrepreneurs in Maine, entrepreneurs in the U.S. that fail their first time, they're able to raise money the second time because you learn from your failures. But you have to be honest about it, and Sara Gideon's not honest, and she can't admit that she's failed. We have a failed Speaker of the House that can't manage. And so it doesn't matter who the next speaker would it be. Ideally not Aaron Herbig, who's too concerned with running for leadership. It could be Ken Fredette, it could be Ellie Espling, it could be Owen Casas, who's an independent. It could be Jared Golden, he's running for Congress. It could be Marty Groman, he's an independent. It could be Craig Hickman. Craig Hickman, by the way, who Sara Gideon stripped of his chairmanship because he dared threaten her leadership. It could be Gay Grant, who Sara Gideon kicked off the Appropriations Committee and put on taxation because she dared challenge her leadership and make known she wouldn't vote for her. It could be Mike Sylvester, who's a socialist, but he at least listens to other people. It could be Ben Collings, who works with the Native Americans. He used to live in Aroostook County, now lives in Portland. Even John Martin, the former Speaker of the House who ruled with an iron fist, will be better than Sara Gideon because people try to say Sara Gideon's a Nancy Pelosi of Maine. That's an insult to Nancy Pelosi because Nancy Pelosi knows how to get stuff done. Sara Gideon can't manage. She's failed us. It's time for her to go. It's time for the legislature to make clear that they do not favor her failed leadership. They do not favor the fact that she could not get a budget passed on time. They do not favor that she couldn't meet the deadline of April 18th, which was hard-coded in statute to get their work done. She had to come back to summer school for remediation. And she had to take them back to try to pass spending measures before an election. But her priority is spending more money, more taxpayer dollars out of your pocket for so-called clean elections, which is taxpayer-funded hit jobs on Republicans. Sara Gideon is a failed leader. She can't manage. She should not be trusted with the calendar. And if they get called back in again, if there's an emergency and Governor LePage needs to call the legislature back, I don't trust Sara Gideon to do the right thing. I don't trust her to manage. She can't even manage the schedule. How can she manage to be speaker? She's not a leader. She's a failed manager. And that's okay. Not everyone's meant to be a manager. She can step down from her position, represent Freeport, the only people who voted for her. And the legislature made clear that we in Maine put people before politics, that we in Maine care about results before egos, and that there's no such thing as a career politician who puts elections before outcomes. Sara Gideon is a nice woman. She's a good mother, but she's a bad manager. She's a failed leader, and she needs to go. Gideon must go, so please step down, Sara. And if you won't do the right thing, I call on the legislature to force you out. Thank you.